let's talk about the IT sector. Now, yesterday it was in the news because the President-elect Donald Trump has backed the use of H-1B visa, saying he fully backs the program for foreign tech workers. He says it's a great program. And he, remember, was once opposed to H-1B visas in his earlier regime. To discuss the impact on Indian IT companies and the generative AI play, will the hype turn into actual revenues in 2025? We have Manik, Taneja, Executive Director, IT Services and Internet at Axis Capital, joining us on the show. Manik, thank you very much for joining us today on the 31st. So tell us first, this H-1B news that we had yesterday, is it noise for you right now? Would you wait for the final guidelines or would you read something into it?
Thank you for having me on the show. I would say Indian IT companies have weathered some of these visa-related challenges in the past and are in a better situation compared to probably even say when Trump was elected for the first time in late calendar year 16. That being said, certainly there have been some news flow about potential changes to the salary levels for H-1B visa holders. These things do tend to get passed on to the customers in general. And I would say this will be no different this time around. And thereby, at a net level, I don't see this as a big intent for the sector.
Okay. Manik, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. More generally, what are you picking up on IT stocks? We saw Accenture push up its earnings expectation or range guidance. What's the sense? Are people recruiting more? Are your sources in IT companies talking about better orders, better execution? Will Q3 be better than Q2?
So at the outset, I would say typically third quarter does have lower number of billing days, typical December quarter phenomena. And thereby the third quarter performance may be sequentially weaker than second quarter in most cases, which is the usual trend. That being said, the sector essentially through calendar year 23 and calendar year 24 went through significant growth moderation, which was a function of multiple factors. Some of those headwinds are certainly receding, and given the optimism in the US going into calendar year 25 with the hopes that the new regime is also pro-business, certainly that optimism should feed into better demand backdrop. That being said, and thereby the rate of change for the sector essentially will be positive from a growth standpoint. As investors / analysts, the challenge that we face essentially is the fact that valuations for Indian IT are significantly higher than what they have been the last 3 to 5 years. In fact, most companies trade at premium to Indian IT companies. So our viewpoint has been to play the sector selectively when it comes to India listed names. At a more broader level, I would say global tech services companies offer better risk reward, a combination of lower than historical valuation multiples, lower valuations compared to Indian techs, and significant price underperformance over a 1 year basis compared to Indian IT. And they should also be significantly benefiting from a pickup in demand.
Okay, so your preference is for global tech companies versus the Indian tech companies. And I think your recommendations will also come up, or your picks will also come up on the screen. Wanted to get your thoughts in on generative AI. Now, you've come out with a very exhaustive report and you've titled it Millennium Shape Shifter to Transform Services. So in a nutshell, tell us what generative AI is likely to do in the near term.
So certainly that's the most I would say, most widely used term across management commentaries in the industry over the course of last 24 months now, since the time this came up. And the pace of development essentially is very sharp. From an Indian IT standpoint, the bigger question is that given the productivity benefits that one can have in the software development lifecycle, can these benefits be retained by Indian IT companies? Just to essentially highlight, Indian IT companies' commercial model have typically been effort-based or basically billing for effort, and thereby the question is that whether with the benefit that these companies gain from lower lower effort can these gains be saved? At least going by the history of the sector, and we've seen through the cycle with the way currency depreciated or some of the savings that happened post COVID. In the course over the course of several years, these gains got passed back to the customer. The positive viewpoint essentially is that these companies can pivot from a services to a software model. But uh, I think given the lack of proof, one would need to see as to how this evolves. For now, our belief is that most of the gains from GenAI will get passed on to the customers in the form of lower price, in the form of pricing or efficiency gains.
Okay. Okay. Manik, we'll have to leave it at that. Have a market to trade. Thank you very much indeed for giving us your thoughts on the IT sector and have a good 2025.
Thank you.
It's 9:10. Thank you. It's